Why did that teacher get fired from your school? 2 teachers. They got caught f-king in a classroom. My 5th grade teacher got caught f-king the IT dude in her classroom while we were out for recess. Neither got fired but were transferred to other schools. Students laughed she ate toothpaste. Turns out she was an alcoholic trying to cover her breath. Dating a 16-year-old female student. He was also a pay teacher. Edit. I should clarify that he did do jail time and is on the sex offenders register. My pay teacher also dated one of his students. He married her. He also continued teaching pay and coaching girls volleyball for 40 more years. Edit. This was in rural Michigan, so unless you were from my high school of less than 200 people, it's unlikely to be the same guy. Just a testament to how gross people are everywhere. My math teacher was a volunteer first responder in NY. She left school to help out during 9/11 and was fired for not showing back up for 2 weeks. She had fallen off the wagon and was drinking a lot to the point where it was affecting her memory. We kept doing the same lecture on density in 6th grade science for a month. Until one of my classmates decided to ask another teacher about it. From there she went to rehab. If anyone wants more context, she was our homeroom and science teacher. She was very nice and married to our assistant principal, so she had a little bit more leeway while she was able to remain sober for a while. She eventually passed away due to the effects of her addiction a few years after this. She never seemed like a bad teacher, but she was always stressed to the absolute maximum. Always felt like she was working from behind and generally struggling to keep up. You know, the traditional tail end of the functioning addict lifestyle. Affecting rather than affecting. That may have been one of the lessons I missed. One of the elementary school teachers at the district I went to got arrested for making his class worship him like he was a cult leader. He was totally bonkers. He didn't come to parent-teacher interview night. The next day, he was late for class and crashed his pickup into a brick sign outside the school. Cops showed up obviously and allegedly he blew twice the legal limit. He called the principal a cunt as he was taken away. Our new band teacher was a young guy, fresh out of college. His first year teaching, and he embezzled about $1,000 from the band's funds. He got arrested and his possible future career ruined for $1,000. Edit. Probably my favorite part of the story was that he went by the name MR.E. So once he was gone, the ruthless band kids referred to him as MR. Embezzlement. Geeky AV teacher that everyone loved. Knew he was a geek and owned it. Caught in a predator sting trying to solicit underage girls. The kicker was a spring school levy was coming up. Local police conspired with the school district to hide the charges for 3 weeks until the levy was passed. Someone substituted his class for 3 weeks. Yeah, everyone was both devastated and pissed. The district ended the school year early. Arrested by the FBI for credit card fraud. It was a few months after the arrest when the reason why he disappeared came out in the open. My sociology teacher in high school was fired for throwing a chalkboard eraser at a sleeping student's head. He was a great teacher and always did this in good humor. Obviously not a great idea in retrospect, but we all knew that we could get away with sleeping in his class if we didn't mind getting an eraser upside the head if he noticed. I heard he was fired a few years after I graduated high school, and that kinda bummed me out. Probably deserving of a reprimand of some sort, but not getting fired. It's not like he was a sex offender or guitar player. He pushed some dumbass kid who hit him against a wall. My AP Chem teacher had an affair with the principal. Principal got fired too. I felt bad for her. They didn't do anything on school property, and it didn't impact her performance in the classroom. Also, the school wasn't able to find a qualified teacher to replace her halfway through the year. So we were all FK'd come test time at the end of the year. Not one of us passed that AP test. He was playing his guitar for students at my elementary school. He had been warned before, but the kids enjoyed it so he continued to play it for them anyways. One day, The assistant principal was lurking in the hallway and wandered to his classroom. She saw him playing his guitar and fired him on the spot. A whole lot of students were crying that day because he was an amazing guy. Edit. More information. This took place in a small, rural town in Georgia back in the early 2000s. He wasn't the music teacher. He just used to bring his guitar and play songs randomly on some days and the kids enjoyed it. He'd been warned multiple times by his higher-ups. Why? IDK. He was a great teacher. He thought that before the break, he could play something for us one last time during the last week of school. It just happened to be the worst possible timing. While the assistant principal was walking through the halls, he didn't come back to teach at our school when classes started again. If I recall, he got a job teaching at a different school. One was such an unlikable teacher they were asked to retire. One was watching porn in class. One sent someone else's DCK pics to a student's mom. One robbed a bank. He straight up didn't show up to work one Monday. Didn't call in to arrange a sub or anything. He ghosted the school for a whole week and then tried to come in the following Monday like nothing happened. We also had a 5th grade teacher overdose on meth, but I honestly don't know if she got fired or resigned. It didn't happen at school. My grade 2 teacher also got fired for not showing up. She did at least make plans for a sub most of the time, but we went weeks without seeing her. A co-worker teacher got fired 2 weeks in the new semester, when instead of uploading a video related to his subject, he instead accidentally continued a previously paused hardcore lesbian scene on the big interactive screen. And X200B. The computer he was using was slow and shitty too, so he couldn't quickly exit the video. It went on for a good 30 seconds before someone pulled the plug on the screen around the same time he lobbed the laptop about 30 feet across the class. He was caught trying to solicit a child prostitute during a sex trafficking sting. He was a social studies teacher at my middle school. And the arrest made local news when I was a freshman. Really shocked the district. Edit. Because a lot of people are asking for details. This happened in San Antonio, Texas in about 2013. Oh boy, where to start? Elementary school nurse was fired for taking the kids' medications. HS band teacher slept with a 15-year-old. Swim coach left a hotel that he was at with his mistress drunk and killed someone with his car. My high school had like 400 students. She embezzled thousands of dollars from various club funds. There were also rumors of her sleeping with students, but the administration never bothered to look into that. Had a history teacher get fired for going off syllabus and spending time on the pre-Judaic flood stories. One of maybe 2 reasons I'm obsessed with Mesopotamian, Anatolian, Egyptian history now. TW. Suicide. Our principal was escorted out by 2 police. Come to find out it was because he was caught committing fraud. He would assign students to classes without telling them to make it seem there were more kids in, let's say, the art department, so that the department would receive more funding from the government to continue. He meant well, but students caught on when we moved to college and transcripts from high school had a whole page F-saw withdrawals. It really messed us up. About 2 weeks later he hung himself. Left behind a wife and kids. It really hit me hard because I almost dropped out of high school after 2 of my friends committed suicide. He was the one that got me counseling, helped me graduate, and encouraged me to go to college. I would not be here if it weren't for him. It just really hurt to know that while he was helping me accomplish that, he did the same thing only a month or 2 later. We planted trees for him to remember him by. RIPMR. Woodcroft. You meant well. The art teacher at my middle school was known to be very suspicious. I've heard that he would take pictures of girls and touch girls. And adding to the fact that he called 2 girls lesbians in front of the whole class. It was just very weird. All these rumors and he got fired eventually. I can't imagine how his wife must have felt when she asked why he got fired. The one that for fired was a substitute teacher and coach of a girls team for grade 7-9. He seemed a bit creepy, and we joked that he liked coaching the girls. and teaching pay so he could watch the girls run around in their shorts. Turns out that wasn't far from the truth. His full-time job was in the medical field, where he was caught doing inappropriate things to female patients, some of whom being kids he coached and taught. And he had 2 sons in that school. This one didn't get fired, but she was at the point where she had a few classes taken from her. And if she did anything wrong, she would have been gone. Why? Well, she didn't know the subject she was teaching, and would make stuff up rather than admitting she didn't know the answer. She was always mad, and we called her Popsicle because she acted like she had a stick up her ass. But the biggest thing was that she failed 2 grade 11 classes. The whole class. Because apparently not one person, including the smartest people in the school, passed any tests. Him and his college buddies invited an underage student over to his house for drinks. They then proceeded to drug and pay her. He still kept his job for a while after the fact because the girl was terrified and didn't know what to do, so she told her friends, which then made the story spread like wildfire, and all the people in a position to do something about it thought it was just a prank. Well, turns out it wasn't a prank. He got sent to prison. Considering it was a drugging and gang pay of a minor, he is probably out by now. I guarantee you he left the state because everyone and their angry redneck dad with a 12 gauge knew about what he did. Teachers at my high school got fired on a pretty regular basis. Principal was a narcissist, but here's one of the rare ones we actually heard about. The school went into lockdown because someone was seen hopping over the fence onto campus at the start of the school day. Freshman geography teacher locked his door, didn't control his class, wouldn't let one of the students back in, and jumped at every sound he heard. For comparison, the sub in senior literature next door didn't have a key to lock the door, but grabbed the handle, got on the floor, and planted both his feet on the frame so that the door couldn't be opened. I think the dude was a linebacker for football. 2. She wasn't enforcing detention, letting students leave early, or just signing their name for them. She was also the mom of a student. They fired her, and all the students that regularly received detention rioted, jumping on cars, flipping trash cans. They set one on fire and pulled the fire alarm 7 times in a day. I forget how it was quelled, but it only lasted a day. Janitor filmed his teenage daughters in the shower. This was 25 years ago, so it was an elaborate rig using cameras that had film cassette tapes. Premeditated. Creepy shit. We looked through that house when it came on the market for sale, and it had an awful feel, only realized later why. They found out he was gay. He was a chaperone for the 8th grade East Coast trip, and parents of boys got all up in arms that he had access to their hotel rooms. No student has ever accused him of anything inappropriate. 1p. Teacher got called out for having erections while watching the girls play sports. Got confronted by the principal, to whom he told it wasn't true, that it just seemed like he had erections because he has a really big dick. The principal, male, was not amused. The P.E. teacher was fired that same week. My football coach bullied the gay kid on the team enough that it had a big enough impact on him that the kid killed himself. The coach was mentioned in the note and the teacher coach resigned. The coach was a total asshole to people he didn't like, including me and a few others on the team. Since he wasn't allowed to kick kids off the team, he would pretty much bully the kids to quit. Teaching us about evolution. I realize that sounds ridiculous and made up, but it seriously happened in my small Texas school. When was that? I was recently a biology teacher in Texas, but I've since moved. Biology is the state required science course, and the state standards require evolution coverage. That teacher should have sued for wrongful termination, not only for their own sake but also the education of future students in that school. There was a tornado in our area. The college I was in was leasing a multi-floor office building. Alarms were sounding outside, and people were retreating into the stairwells for safety. Teacher blew it off and said people were just making it up to be funny. Learned when I got home that the tornado was right outside the window I was sitting next to. reported him to the faculty. So did others. He was gone the following week. A teacher gave alcohol to some students in a field trip out of the country. They students were 16-17 and they asked if they could order beer. Later they took photos and it was all over Facebook. This was years after I graduated, but rumors spread quickly. Kindergarten teacher would dig furrows into kids' arms with her long, sharp nails by basically holding their arms real tightly. She did this if she caught them misbehaving during recess. It happened to me when I was running when I shouldn't have. I think this was nearly 40 years ago. I showed the principal my arm as he was walking out one day and she was fired on the spot. I think I was 4 at the time and didn't realize exactly what I did at the time. Crazy shit. She, teacher, was helping cover up an affair between a female student and a male baseball coach. She also was the proxy between them. For example, the coach bought the girl a necklace, so he gave it to the teacher, who in turn gave it to the student. And X200B. Everything blew up when the student's parents looked through her phone and found a bunch of inappropriate texts. And X200B. The teacher did not serve any time. She lost her license though. He had enough of that one arsehole kid who would disrupt class and talk shit. One time he punched him in the side of the head while he was still in his seat. Knocked him and his desk over. The kid was fat SND, wore tracksuits to class and thought he was the shit. But he wasn't and had it coming. Everyone gave the teacher props, but he knew it was over and just walked out. Not fired because, well, it's very hard to fire a teacher. Student spoke back to the teacher for the 3rd time in one class. Teacher grabbed him out of his seat and threw him into the chalkboard. Yes, this dates me, leaving a 25cm hole in the chalkboard. Not only was the teacher not fired, they later named a building after him, Nassau. Lots of stories here. Basically teacher plus Goral plus SX equals fired. My teacher was smart. He started dating a girl her freshman year. When she turned 18, she graduated early. He resigned and they jumped the wagon. Never to be heard from again. Worst part? She was dating some other guy at 16. Got pregnant. And claimed it was the boyfriend's. When they left, she took the kid with them. The teacher was in his 40s with a wife and 2 kids. Mr. Boer and Alyssa, if you see this. Holland is now married with 2 kids and Mrs. Lisbon remarried as well. She was in a porn magazine. At least one. Rumor was multiple and maybe even a few tapes. This was right at the start of the internet, so acquiring things wasn't as easy. But someone did eventually find at least one magazine with a whole section about her. So yay. It was passed around the school and she was fired that same day. Also some pretty heavy rumors she was hooking up with some students, but the videos were always way too grainy to say it was her. They found out his diploma was a forgery. He never attended or graduated from any college to be able to teach. No one was surprised because he didn't last a year and he didn't even attempt a lesson plan. So it was only a matter of time. No idea what he was thinking would happen. She stepped out of class to talk to the principal and a student was going to hide her thermos. They opened the lid to smell it. It was vodka. Ran around one of the chem labs shirtless and had a trash can on his head. Right before classes were going to start, the police checked his house and found a meth lab that apparently wasn't not his. It belonged to his roommate. This was a few years before Breaking Bad ever came out. Close bracket. Soccer coach got too handsy with some of the female players. English teacher left his wife for one of his students. Let's see which one. The 4th grade teacher arrested for raping his foster son. The 6th grade gym teacher caught with CP on the school supplied computer. The high school teacher exposing himself on Main Street. The high school vice principal found banging a 15-year-old in his backseat. Or do you want to hear about the alcoholics? In a span of 3 years. All in my hometown of 3,300 people. Gym teacher picked on kids incessantly for years. Finally, during a class outside, an adult witnessed the bullying. The bullied kid's uncle was the principal. Numerous complaints from kids over the years went ignored. One adult witnesses it. He's fired. Girls basketball coach was caught trying to meet up and have sex with multiple 14-15-year-old girls. Fired. In prison. Guy's assistant football coach caught soliciting nudes with a 15-year-old boy. Fired. In prison. All of these teachers bullied me in high school and really diminished my self-confidence. I find solace in going to sleep in my comfortable bed tonight, knowing they're locked in the absolute hell that is our incarceration system. Our elementary school just got a new principal. Fuck you MR. Tepner, who was on some f-king power trip or some shitty, and he fired all the newer teachers at my school including my 5th grade teacher. MR. Deathloff. If you're out there, you will always be the best teacher I've ever had. Open bracket. I went to a pretty conservative Catholic school. In 7th grade we had a music teacher that pretty much only taught us lyrics to Bob Dylan songs and other 60s hippie music. He was gone the next year. He was the music teacher. And a pedophile. Unfortunately for him. He didn't think the girls he practiced with in the practice room would report to the principal. When that happened, he ran like a dog with a tail between its legs. MR. Nelson. If you're seeing this, rotten hell. This was my elementary school principal. She got fired from her old school because her and a teacher were caught hooking up in the parking lot by another staff member. The rumor spread like wildfire because somehow the district let her keep her job. All they did was make her switch the schools in which she's the principal for. He was accused and caught on camera grabbing female high school students' butts in the crowded hallways. He had numerous accusations brought against him for cornering female students when they were alone, giving special treatment to females in his class, making sexual comments in class, and even following a student home one day in his car. I was one of the students who had to report and give a written account of my interactions with him. He was fired after the police got involved. Thank fuck.